For decades, the nation celebrated a luminous future built on radium glow watches, while the true cost was hidden behind polished advertising and factory walls. The profit of Radium Manufacturing Co. depended on a secret that the workers themselves would never see, the deadly radiation seeping from every painted dial. That silence still matters today because it set the precedent for how corporations could disguise occupational hazards as progress. The expansion of radium dial factories was not an isolated business decision, but a coordinated system, one that married industrial ambition with governmental complacency in the name of national prosperity. In the early 1920s, sprawling plants opened in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, hiring young women from modest backgrounds. They were taught a precise technique: dip a fine brush into luminous paint, then lick the bristles to keep them supple for the smallest strokes on watch faces. The lip brush method promised flawless numerals, and the factories praised it as an art form that turned ordinary girls into skilled artisans of light. Within months, the first symptoms appeared. Workers complained of aching jaws that refused to open, a condition later called radium jaw. Their skin grew pale, their blood thin, and many suffered chronic fatigue. The company's physicians dismissed these ailments as common colds or anemia caused by poor diet. In reality, invisible particles were embedding themselves in bone, destroying tissue from the inside out. The women tried to speak up, but each complaint was met with a polite nod and a suggestion to see a doctor, always one employed by Radium Manufacturing Co. The pattern of denial spread beyond a single supervisor. It became an institutional habit. Management's priority remained clear: keep production humming, keep the luminous dials selling, and keep any hint of danger out of public view. Behind locked doors in the corporate headquarters, a team of chemists finally compiled data that linked the workers' illnesses directly to radium exposure. Their report was thorough, citing tissue samples, radiation measurements, and a grim tally of deaths among former dial painters. When the document reached the United States Labor Board, political pressure from industry lobbyists forced a decisive move. The memo would be sealed, its findings hidden from both the public and the workers it described. The act of sealing was not an isolated edict. It reflected a broader governmental willingness to protect burgeoning industries at the expense of labor health. The Labor Board's silence became part of a systematic effort to prioritize economic growth over human safety, a pattern that would echo in later industrial disputes across the nation. To deflect growing rumors, Radium Manufacturing Co. enlisted Dr. Harold Finch, a physician with close ties to corporate leadership. In a series of press releases and internal statements, Finch claimed that the afflicted women were suffering from venereal disease, specifically syphilis, a diagnosis that carried severe social stigma in the 1920s. He suggested that their mysterious symptoms were merely manifestations of this alleged infection, not radiation poisoning. The accusation served a dual purpose. It discredited the workers' complaints and shifted public sympathy away from the factory. By tarnishing their reputations, the company hoped to silence any demand for independent investigation. The scandal revealed how medical authority could be weaponized within a system that valued profit above truth, turning science into a shield rather than a beacon. Amid the smear campaign, Eleanor McAllister, a former dial painter whose own health had begun to deteriorate, refused to remain silent. She organized a small committee of women who had worked at the plant, gathering personal testimonies and petitioning for an external medical review. Their meetings were held in modest homes, away from the watch factory's looming presence, but their resolve grew louder with each story shared. Eleanor's leadership transformed isolated grievances into collective action. She wrote letters to newspapers, reached out to sympathetic labor activists, and demanded that the sealed memo be made public. The workers' voices began to echo beyond the factory gates, challenging a system that had long dismissed them as expendable. The growing pressure caught the attention of a federal judge overseeing a related lawsuit filed by several former dial painters. Recognizing the weight of the concealed evidence, the court ordered the release of the Labor Board's sealed memo. When the document finally entered the public domain, its stark conclusions could no longer be ignored. Radium exposure was directly responsible for the workers' debilitating conditions and premature deaths. The ruling exposed a coordinated effort to hide scientific truth, a corporate fraud buttressed by governmental acquiescence. It forced the nation to confront how industrial advancement had been built on concealed sacrifice, and it set a legal precedent that corporate documents could not be arbitrarily hidden when public health was at stake. In the wake of the court's decision, Radium Manufacturing Co. entered into settlement negotiations with the affected women. The company agreed to financial compensation, medical care for those afflicted, and, crucially, a commitment to overhaul its safety protocols. Simultaneously, the National Labor Board drafted a series of radiation safety codes that mandated protective equipment, regular health screenings, and transparent reporting of occupational hazards. These reforms marked a turning point. What had once been an unchecked system of secrecy began to transform into one where worker safety held legal weight. The new regulations reverberated through other industries, prompting broader discussions about corporate liability and the ethical obligations of employers toward their employees. The changes were not instantaneous, but they laid a foundation that would protect future generations of laborers. The story of the Radium Girls endures not as a tale of isolated tragedy, but as a cornerstone of modern occupational health law. Eleanor McAllister's courage illuminated the path for future labor movements, proving that collective action can pierce even the most entrenched walls of denial. The case reshaped how courts evaluate corporate responsibility and forced an entire nation to reckon with the hidden costs of technological progress. Today, safety standards protect countless workers who might otherwise have faced similar fates. Yet the lesson remains stark. When profit is placed above humanity, secrecy thrives. When truth is demanded, systems can change. The glow that once adorned watch faces now serves as a reminder. Light can reveal both brilliance and danger, and it is our duty to ensure that what we illuminate never again comes at the expense of those who create it.